going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a really interesting episode working on this Fiero Testarossa. Now, some of you might be thinking, wow, he has a Fiero Testarossa, that's amazing. And those with a keen eye will probably realize this is not a real Ferrari Testarossa. What this is a Pontiac Fiero with Ferrari Testarossa parts scalped onto it. This is a semi-common thing that I've heard was done for people that wanted the look of high-end sports cars but did not want to pay for them. If any of you are interested in watching Motor Trend, Faster with Finnegan actually took a similar concept. They had a Pontiac Fiero that was turned into a Lamborghini. They called it the Scamborghini. So this is something similar except with a Ferrari. So since it's a Fiero Testarossa, I'm going to be calling it the Fieroossa. Needs a little bit of work done. A friend of mine bought this. He has intentions on flipping it. So it needs a little bit of cosmetic work done to it to make it look a little bit better than it actually is. Whoever did this initial build it's a very sketchy build. There are definitely some things on here that I would not consider to be right. It does have some major issues, like for example, both of the mirrors are no longer attached to the car. We've got a little cleanup stuff to do on the interior, just a little cosmetic stuff just to make it look a little bit better. It does run and drive completely fine, which is a big plus, so that's one less thing I need to worry about. So without further ado, let's get into working on this car. So I do have a handy list of things that I will need to be doing on this car. One of the first things that you can do to easily increase the value of a car is clean it. And this car has not been cleaned in quite some time. So easiest and first thing I'm going to do is just going to vacuum up the interior. So let's get to it. All right, the next thing I'm going to be doing is tidying up all these wires that are just hanging here. Someone has already put a fuse block in here that is just held up by a zip tie. So I will be trying to better hold it up with a zip tie, but just in general getting all these wires out of the way. So let's get to it. Oh, it only gets worse. The more you look, the worse it gets.
Never seen that before. Double zip tie something or other with nice sharp ends so you can cut yourself.
Oh, good golly, this thing is bad. I don't know, put this fuse block back here somewhere. There's no good place to put it though. Whoever worked on this thing before should be taken out back and shot. Good golly. I think I can get this bolt back up in there where it used to be. Yeah, I think it used to be something like that. Alright, at least that's back semi-fastened away and where it should be. Of course I'm missing the other bolt, but that's much better than it was. So these wires that aren't connected to anything for some reason, I'm just going to zip tie them back up here out of the way. this set of column wires. I'll just zip tie them up there. I don't know why they're not connected to anything. But that's going to take two. I have to double up on my zip ties. Don't know why I'm telling you all this. All right, this is your adjustment for your gauge cluster. Honestly, I kind of just want to leave that hanging out so people can find it, but this relay can get tied up out of the way. All right, that's at least a little better now. Less risk of hitting, catching your foot on something underneath there. And while I'm doing the back or the front, I might as well do the back because I do have on my list tightening up the wires in the rear. And of course, this thing's heavy. Switch you guys down there. So get these wires to tidy up, just meant to make it look better. They don't do anything, I'll just give the appearance. Why are these wires cut? Oh, good golly. Just give the better appearance of being neat. So, won't show you that, but tidy those up. We'll move on to the next task. All right, so the next issue I need to contend with on this car is both of the rear view mirrors, or both of the side view mirrors, have rusted or fallen out of their little area there. So I gotta come up with some way to get these attached, and I think what I'm going to do is, it looks like there's these bolts and there's a bolt way back in there. I think those bolts are what hold this on, and what I'd like to do, I think, is I'm going to cut a piece of sheet metal for this, weld some studs onto it, and then epoxy it into here. I'll have to dig this out a little bit, but that's the next step. Someone has tried to, sent a bunch of screws in through the sides and stuff like that, and it didn't work. It fell apart. It's not meant to hold that kind of weight. So next step. So I'm gonna try to see if I can get these pieces out. I won't. All right. So no lie, I found there's one bolt to take this panel off above the steering wheel. So I took that off, and I literally just found this piece of bent metal stuck through the vent, and this piece of wire. Why this is in here, I have absolutely no idea. Like, what is the purpose of this wire? I'm just baffled at this point, because the wire doesn't serve any purpose at all. So, I mean, maybe this piece of metal was to hold the vent up so that it would actually go into where it was supposed to, but crumpled up piece of wire is that's a new one. That's some heavy gauge wire too. So, but now that I have this out of the way, I can actually get to the bolts that hold are supposed to hold the mirror on. So we'll give that a try and see if we can't get those nuts off. There's one. There's another one back here somewhere. I think. Yep, oh, right there. Alright, so theoretically, that should be come out. Need a little prying device. So this is all body putty they filled in.
And one is Peter. Bugger and stuck.
Good news is there is a connector that theoretically I can unhook. Ah, there you go. That's the little bugger we're trying to get out. So that, I guess, came unepoxied or something like that from this side here. Because this piece actually doesn't look too bad, but then someone tried to put screws in it to hold the mirror back on. It didn't work so well. So now that this is complete, I can take this, use this as a template to make a new piece that'll fit in there. I can carve some of this out and then try to re-epoxy it back in. So now I just need to do the same thing on the other side. So I decided to attach the plates that I had made with the welded studs to the mirror using epoxy. The plate was fitted into the end of the mirror, and then I filled the whole area with epoxy, as you can see here, to make sure that it had a nice strong bond for when it was mounted onto the car. All right, so this car was originally lowered, I believe. And then I'm told that the guy who had this car most recently raised it back up. Well, it looks kind of stupid as high up off the ground it is. So we're going to put some lowering springs back on this and get this thing back on the ground where it needs to be. So first got to take the wheel off and take this fancy cover off and see what's behind this fancy cover. All right, so what we got here is a strut here, and a strut is a spring with a shock on the center of it. So the first thing we need to do to get the strut out is take these bolts off the top, and then the strut will be able to come down. All right, all the bolts are off, and the strut falls right out. Make sure we just don't lose that hardware. Now we come back down below. As you can see, strut is now out, so now all I have to do is take these couple bolts off right here. And once I take these two bolts off and this brake line that I'm stretching right now, once we take those off, then the strut will come right out. Real simple. Now getting the spring off the strut, that's a different story, and there's a special tool you want to use for this, and it makes doing struts a whole lot easier, and I'll show you that in a little bit. What we've got here is a big old 24. There we go. A little listening and a little persuasion. And now, the strut falls right out. So you can see there's a nut on the top of there. So this spring is still under tension. So you gotta get that nut off carefully and not have the spring blow up in your face. And there's a couple different tools, but I'll show you my preferred method in a little bit. So now we just have to do the same thing on the other side. And that's side number 2. Full disclosure, that took about half the time as the first side. So now let's move on to the front, and I know that's going to be more difficult because it's not a strut setup, so let's go. So what you can see us using here is a strut compressing tool. In my opinion, it's much safer than the finger compressing tools that you can use that have a big long piece of threaded rod, because this has a cage around it and it has the large hand wheel at the top, It's just easier to position the fingers of this tool to safely compress the strut so that you're not afraid of hurting yourself by fingers slipping off of anything.
Could have got me the longer ratchet.
You want the longer one? I didn't think it'd be this stuck.
Flip the wrench or not?
No. It is pretty close to loose right now. All right.
That looks like it's from a yard. It looks like it's from a yard.
You mean yours?
That's a junkyard, the way it's marked. You want to set it down?
I figure you pull up.
I didn't want to do that to you.
Last time, I can't be on that coil. Turn close. Let's go down a bit. Bit more. Yep, that's good. Sure? Actually, I think this could come up a bit. Too much. No, it's pretty straight.
The inside really lags, huh?
Mm-hmm. Probably to use some lubrication.
Right. Well, you need the other part. Ouch!
What'd you hit?
My sore fingers.
Oh. That's what I need to do.
Down more?
Yep. It's getting them off isn't the hard part. If you putting them on that you're afraid it's going to kill you. Nope, need more.
Well, we're almost out of travel.
I see that.
I think we got something going wrong here.
Well, maybe this is.
I gotta let this up. Let's let this
Oh,
up.
here we go.
Let's let this up.
Okay. Wait. Okay.
I'm spinning it. Let it up some more.
I'd keep it there. Tighten it up. Oh, I don't want to do that.
Nope. You get it where you need it. Hold it there.
All right, right there.
If I let it up, it'll put more tension on that and keep it in place.
True.
What?
True.
Alright, you're gonna have to pull. Do you want me to let it up?
Yeah.
You ought to be able to make it tight now, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's significantly lower than it was. All right, so this setup is a little bit different because it's got upper control arm, lower control arm with the spring in between. So it's not the strut setup, which actually would be a little easier to take apart, but still not impossible. The first thing that I gotta do is I want to take off the lower shock mount because that is going to cause that lower control arm not to be able to move down fully. And you might have been able to see it move down just a hair anyway. All right. Next, what I want to do is I need to take the sway bar off because if I can't, I won't be able to get the spring out with the sway bar still attached. I won't be able to lower the lower control arm down up. So next is I have to take off that sway bar mount. And of course, impact doesn't fit. Next, and you're probably gonna have a hard time seeing this just where I have the camera, is there's a cotter pin down there on a castle nut that holds the lower control arm ball joint on. So that has to come off. It's always nice when you can't really get to where you need to. Alright, cotter pin is out. I took a guess at the size. I got the wrong size, it's an 18, and I can use a socket in there. In the meantime, I want to
sauce it up with some PB Blaster, because that's going to make it come off easy. Alright, so if you guys can see that, there is currently a space between the castle nut and the bottom of the steering knuckle, and that is because the ball joint is a tapered fit and it's seized into that steering knuckle. Now there's a couple ways that you could take care of that. You could whack on it with a hammer, whack on it with a bar, but if neither of those work, you need to get your old ball joint fork out and separate them. Whacking with the hammer is the most preferred method. You don't want to hit directly on the ball joint though, but that's the most preferred method because using the fork can potentially rip the grease boot. So you just have to be really careful when you're using these forks. But I tried the other methods, that's not going to work, so we're going with the fork. Did you hear that pop? That was the ball joint releasing. So now what you want to do is that spring still has quite a bit of tension on it. So I'm going to put my jack underneath, crank up a little bit. Now I can take that castle nut off safely, and I can safely now let the lower control arm down and not kill myself with that spring. Got a little stuck when I put it back up. There you go. That's how much tension was still in that spring. I had about an inch gap from the jack to the bottom of that lower control arm, and you heard how violent that was. So now we can get a pry bar and pry that spring out. I'm gonna carefully pry it out because I still could be hung up on something. I don't want to get hurt. Go. Spring is out. So the springs I've got are from Eibach, and according to the online description, these new springs are supposed to lower the car about an inch. Actually not even an inch according to what they say online, but as you can see right here, there's a significant height difference from our old springs to our new springs. It's almost 2 coils worth, probably about 3 to 4 inches of just unsprung height difference. Now, that could mean that this new spring has a higher spring rate than the old spring, in which case it won't sag as much as the old spring did. Either way, I think this is going to make our Ferrari Testarossa kit car look much better. It's going to sit lower to the ground, and overall it's just going to have a much better look. So let's get this new spring in. All right, so installation is just about the same as removal, except that this should go much easier now that the springs are quite a bit shorter. So I'll get this new one up in here. Like so. I'll press down on the lower control arm to get it past that bump stop. And try to do so without pinching my fingers. There we go. So that is like such, and now where the jack is actually helpful, because now I can just use the jack. Respring it back up. Make sure that your lower control on ball joint is going to line up. Like that. Castle nut on for safety now.
Run the castle nut down.
And now I just want to go a little bit more, snug it up and line up the castle nut holes, the castle nut with the holes in the lower control arm ball joint. And that ought to do it. Perfect. And there you have it. New lowering spring is in. Just got to do it to the other side. All right, we are taking the Fiero kit car for a drive, and I barely fit, and I'm not a very tall guy. I'm only 5'6", but this thing, my head touches the roof. Rattles quite a bit. Not gonna go for a far drive. Squeaky. Tach doesn't work, speedo doesn't work, temp gauge doesn't work, fuel gauge maybe works a little bit. Ooh. Rattles around quite a bit. Gutless and it pops. I now understand why the guys with Faster with Finnegan put a V8 in it, because this engine is pretty terrible. Oh yeah, she doesn't like taking throttle. Yeah, this thing's not running well. Well, I hope you guys liked the episode today. If you did, drop a comment below. Let me know what you thought. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.